Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heart to Heart. My name is Elmira. We are back with another episode, and this is a special treat because typically we're on Instagram, but today we're on Facebook, and we have our wonderful guest, Ian Gibbs-Hall. Our conversation, we were already chatting backstage, having some fun today. Our conversation is about curiosity, play, DEI, whatever develops from today. So, Ian, what would you say? Because we were actually mentioning this earlier about play. What is the importance of play, just in general?
Important in terms of.
Well, just in work, because that's the first thing that came to mind. Because a lot of times we think play has nothing to do with work, it should be separate. We got to take these things seriously, these particular topics seriously, whether it's racism, sexism, whatever it is. What's the importance in play in understanding all of these like deep topics?
Yeah. Well, I think the first is to assess that. Also, if you hear a bunch of sounds, I am on kid duty. So
See, we have actual play.
Hey, get out. Hey, a little bit less, okay? I think the most important part is the definition you use for play. When I hear play, I think of. Hang on a second.
Mm-hmm.
I think of like Halo. I think of games. I think of like Halo, Red Rover, dodgeball, all this stuff, and like that's really rooted in activity. But like to me, if I go to like what play feels like, or any like nostalgia I have with play, it was being outside learning. It was touching spiders and frogs and sticks and stuff, and then not coming back until your mom called you for dinner. So when I think of play, it's not like, oh, what game are we going to do? What's the next activity? But it's more like play is curiosity. What can you learn? How can you imagine? Like what can you experience from pretending something is like something else that you can then apply to your real world? It's a mindset. It's a paradigm shift of looking at something, and instead of thinking it has to be some way, it's imagining, it's being curious as to what it could be instead.
That is you describing play as a mindset is so critical because now I'm reflecting. I have some massage students. I was a massage therapist for many years, and so now I help students pass the national exam. And what's been coming up in my recent sessions is they haven't added this element of play to their study. So there's it's almost like what you were saying, it has to be this way. If I know this muscle is called this and the heart does this, I'm not learning it because I'm not playing with the information. So I've been even explaining to them, like, you got to play with this. You got to get curious with it.
Well, and I love that, because it'd be very easy just to memorize. Oh yeah, this is I don't know, your sartorius. It's like, great, but what does that do?
Oh, you know the sartorius. See, you know a muscle.
I've got a lot of issues with the sartorius.
Yeah, that's a big one because it's a small muscle, but it's a long one.
And it gets tight. But that even brings me to. Well, there's a differentiation. There's a difference between like memorization, which is a big part of like my work, and understanding. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, I feel like the like play can bring you to understanding. It's seeing how things work together and recognizing the intent behind something, like the purpose, as opposed to what's the activity that we need to do and get done.
So how do you, in your experience with everything you've done career-wise and in your personal life, how do you find that purpose? How do you get to that place of wanting to switch from just, we need to do this, the memorization, what's on the paper, what the laws, the regulations, everything said I had to do. How do you get to that other place?
These are really fun questions. We're like 5 minutes in. This is great.
I'm I mean, I just want to know, like,
Yeah, no, this is keep going. So for me, for me, a lot of that came from the, I'll go way back, from being this shade of race, having this much melanin, being mixed. In my case, let me live in this liminal space where nothing was ever truly defined. I also grew up in rural Iowa, so I was told, well, you look a certain way, you have to be like this. But then if I ever was, it was too much. So I was always trying to find, like, well, who am I? What is race? Who am I? How do I fit in? And that led me to a lot of, sorry, again, kids talking, it's tough for me to parse it out. A lot of what my work kind of like started from, or was catalyzed from, was way back in 2020, witnessing the murder of George Floyd. And that kind of kicked into this. Hang on one second.
Oh, yeah.
Stay down here, please. Thank you. No, it's too violent. We're going to keep it. But in trying to understand what this was, I went down this journey of self-discovery, of like reading truly what race was in the very inception of it. This is a very long explanation. Thanks for your patience. And in finding out, like, oh, well, race it's a social construct. It is like, and seeing exactly how and why and when race started. 1365, Portugal, whole thing. I was like, well, there has to be more to this. There has to be more to me than this definition. And that eventually brought me to the term that is the name of, it's completely changed my life. It is the name of my business. It's how I try to live everything, of Sonder. And Sonder is the profound realization that every person that you see, every face in a crowd, every person walking on a street, every opponent on the other side has a life that's just as complex as your own. And in realizing that, it let me realize my own, innate complexity. And in trying to figure out what that intent is, or what I should do, what that complexity is, I'm like, well, then there's some purpose for me. There is something that I am compelled to do that no one else is, because no one else is like me. And I've been following that for the last 5 years, and it's led me to, I think, my work and what we talked about when we first met.
Cool. I didn't know that Sonder had that particular meaning. Why did you pick that word over something else? I mean, you could have picked any word in the dictionary. What the heck?
Yeah, I feel it's one of the most powerful words I've ever experienced. It is both a catalyst for transformation and the continuous what it's like to experience it. It is how I play, because it lets you enter any interaction, any relationship. Hang on one second.
Oh, yeah.
It lets you enter any interaction free of assumptions, and you can be curious. Like, just because someone is, X, Y, and Z identity, and you have those experiences with them, the person you're talking to is someone you've never met before. And if you have met them, they've lived a life, and this is what I tell him all the time, like, they have a life they've lived that you can't possibly know. So all we can really do to truly see each other is to show up curious and ask, or at least think, what's that like? And it's that curiosity that has changed things for me. It's changed how I see the world, others, and most importantly, myself.
Yeah, so like you were saying, it has changed you, like curiosity and leading with that. How would you say you got to this place of leading with curiosity? Because we can be because one of the things you stated was everybody's different. Everybody's had a life before this, at this moment. They've had their challenges, their roles, their whatever. How do you get to that place of wanting to say, this is what I want to do with my life, as opposed to just going with the status quo and the norms. No, I'm being
Yeah, it means unlearning a lot of things. In trying to figure out what I am compelled to do, and not just who I am, but how I am, and feel closer to that and everyone else. It's not achievement based. It's not performance based. Like everyone is different. Everyone is special, and it takes unlearning all of the things that we've grown up with. I mean, watching him grow up and seeing what he was. Also, our house we just moved. We usually have much more effective furniture than what we have right now. But all the things that we've learned and been told, like, makes us small and feel small. And we have to do this and go to work from this time to this time. And if we put in enough effort and time and wait and we hope and whatever, then something will happen, as opposed to what are you compelled to do right now? And even as I say that, this is a new process for me because it's 30 some years of unlearning stuff, but I've been compelled to follow my gut and what feels right and trusting my intuition. And that's led to countless nights of being up until 4 a.m., just like working or going on my marker board or reading, or I have to journal everything and just seeing where that goes. And there have been, again, countless like aha moments where I'm like, oh, I have to share this, or I need to build on this, or this is the new direction that it's going. But yeah, it's recognizing, again, it's going back to Sonder. I'm like, no one else has experienced what I have before. So whatever I feel compelled to do is something different. And if I can contribute something to all of this, to all of us, in a way that hasn't been seen before, that feels useful. That feels worthwhile. And I hope it's useful.
It is useful because I'm intrigued, because you spoke of intuition and being guided and led by that. And I think when it comes to us sharing what information we share, or what our company stands for, what the vision is, what the mission is, it has to be internally led. Because if I'm so focused on, okay, they said this was popular, they said if I did this topic I'd make $1 million, I'd make 6 figures, or whatever the stamp is. You talked about unlearning. To me, that's not the direction to go. You have to lead with intuition, because you were distinctly designed to have a message, to share a message. And people, they love stories like your story, your personal story of like George Floyd, and that being an impetus for you, and all of that. What do you say about all of the, like, the intuition piece?
Which part?
Just intuition in general. How do, like, this year specifically, how has intuition guided you in the steps you've taken? Because a lot of this stuff is new. You could have easily said, I just want to be stuck in what I did in years past. I don't want to unlearn anything else. I don't want to learn anything new. How do you navigate and just start to use your intuition, like activate it? Because I think many of us, I've been there too, can get stuck in, I don't want to do intuition.
Yeah. So I feel like, okay, I'm going to try to draw this logically and then talk about it through feeling and emotion. But I feel like intuition comes from awareness. Awareness comes from recognizing, like, being, like not just who I am, but how I am. I think it's a clear distinction. And I think that beingness comes from a shift, not just from belonging, but a shift to authenticity. Right here, over there, please. Thank you. So So like following like my intuition, yeah, it's being aware of like any feeling that I have. Anytime I feel uneasy or nervous or something, I lean in a little more.
Hmm.
And if I can look at fear not as something to run away from, but as something to be curious about, and go like, oh, what am I afraid of? Fear is usually the result of something changing, or even that fear is, I think, the baseline of anger. So anytime that I've been angry, I'm like, okay, what am I afraid of? And then I go, okay, what am I? And then I recognize what I'm afraid of. Like, well, how can I change it? And to be frank, right now, my intuition is coming from me being afraid of everything. I think just seeing the world, at least our country, how we set things up, like how things are set up, what's established, what systems are in place, how we view one another, how we treat one another, and how we view ourselves. I'm like, this isn't working. Like, I don't, it doesn't feel sustainable. And so everything I'm doing is trying, is working, is believing that we can make something better. And I truly feel that that starts with we have to see each other, but in order for us to see each other, we have to first see ourselves. And that means just kind of following what gut, like truly like gut feelings we have. If something feels off and you feel it like a in your stomach, like don't do it. If you feel like butterflies and you're excited, go ahead and try it. Or if you do feel those like that, like why is that? Question it. Be aware of how you feel constantly. And so yeah, right now, my intuition, especially with I think how divided our country is, I initially was scared
Yeah.
whenever the election results came in, and we just saw how polarized our country is. It's like, oh, like to be fully honest, I was looking at moving to like our whole family. We were very serious about going to Ireland.
Oh,
If
really?
you can buy, there is a program where if you go to the Aaronmore Islands off of the coast of Ireland, it's a 15-minute ferry ride. There's about 500 people in the town. They will give you about $80,000 to fix up a home. And my partner and I were like, this sounds really nice.
Like, we're going to Ireland.
We're getting like our country is eating itself. This isn't
Yeah.
going to work. And there's a part of me that's like, no, I can't, because I feel like the work that I'm doing and it's I can see what the work is finally. After 5 years, I can finally see what it is. Like, oh, this could make a change. This could do something profound. And we're here because I'm believing that what I'm working towards can make an impact, a positive one.
And it is because here's my take. Most of it starts with the conversation. Most of it starts with words, the intuition, that all the thoughts, the things we cannot like tangibly
Mm-hmm.
see, so to speak, because it has to begin there. Because
Yeah.
if we don't get on a trajectory of where we want to flip these systems, like systems of racism, sexism, abuse, just whatever name you want to call it, is not going to change. And then we can't escape from it either. Because you
Yeah.
almost were in Ireland. Do you think moving to
Almost.
Ireland would have almost? Do you think that would have solved, or what would that have done?
Well, I mean, it would have given immediate relief. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's running from something, and in many cases, if you need to run, do that. Like if you need to, like if you take, I mean, it would have been my dog here too. It would have been like my partner, my kid, the
Yeah.
dog. Like we would have gone there and like let's just do this. But then I realized like, well, I've spent too much time working to change this, and actually the approach that I take to DEI and then a step or two below it, I'm like, I think it's a way that we can depolarize all of this. It's a way we can help both sides. And I'm doing air quotes because like there isn't a side. We're all the same. Like all of this left, right, this, that, us, them, like is all engineered. It's all beliefs. And like my work and the thing that I can't say that I created it. I feel like I discovered it, and I'm calling it curiosity architecture. It's a way to uncover, explore, and then reimagine those beliefs so that something new can happen. And it feels like a way to bypass all of these polarizing, divisive approaches that have people clinging to self-preservation as opposed to leaning in and seeing someone else.
Oh, yeah. So when you say curiosity architects, you're speaking of more like architect as in a building, construction,
Yeah.
forming something new. Like, how
Mhm.
did you put all this together? Because you don't normally hear curiosity, architecture, engineering, like in the
It's
same.
yeah. It's really fun. If you search curiosity architecture, nothing pops up. It's just me, which is really exciting. It's really exciting. But like in this work, it's pretty recent. For the longest time, I was doing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, with the foundation of Sonder. It's like, hey,
Mhm.
like we're talking about, making sure everyone feels included and there's a sense of belonging. People can only really belong if we recognize that every person is unique in a way that you can't possibly comprehend. It's an extra step. Like we're trying to bring organizations and people to move from seeing things as how they are, because they've always been that way, to creating something new to where groups can exist and feel like they belong. Let's shift to belonging. Well, like what I was working to do was like, let's go one step further and let's shift to authenticity. Because even within the groups that we have, the labels, the identities, the roles that we play, those are limiting. And as someone who is mixed and been mixed their whole life and was mixed in places where just being mixed, like growing up in rural Iowa was very odd, looking like this and having this hair.
Right.
And so being like, oh, like, well, the narratives that we use to assume what other people are, and like,
He's quiet now.
he's doing
It's like,
great. He's doing great. It's like it's too quiet, and he's just playing
yeah,
with
what's happening?
he's just rolling around. But even those narratives are limiting. We have to go one step further. I have to know what it's like to be you, which only you can tell me. Like that is I need to be empathetic. I need to have empathy. And empathy isn't putting on someone else's shoes, because I'm still going to I will fill that perception or that experience with my assumption of what those shoes are like and where you've already been before. The only way I can be empathetic is to ask you directly, what's it like to be you? How are you feeling right now? And hopefully we have that amount of trust where you can share authentically what you're feeling. I feel like I've strayed so far from the initial question. I don't
No,
know.
I caught the whole thing. I caught it. I caught it. I
Awesome.
caught what you was putting down. No, because what you said, Ian, is less, because one of the things you were exploring was less shift to belonging, and then taking it a deeper to less shift to authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Because once I recognize and live in that space of authenticity and being empathetic, I get to learn the real you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not assuming and guessing this is what you mean, or this is what you said, or this is who you are. I'm going straight to the horse's mouth and asking. And I'll give an example of this. When I was getting curious about, like earlier this year, all this DEI talk, I'm like, I don't even understand what's going on. What did I do? I was sitting in a networking meeting and I said, can somebody link me with some DEI people who worked in the space, some professionals? That's how I connected with you with CI. And this is the action you're speaking about. Like all of us being authentic and vulnerable enough and curious enough to take those steps, and just instead of just assuming this is what they meant. This is who Trump is. This is who Kamala is. This is what this person does. Like I can't label it if I haven't asked.
Yeah.
So it's how this conversation came to be in the first place is what you embody.
Thank you.
Is the curiosity.
Thank you. Yeah. And it feels, I think curiosity feels inevitable when when that paradigm shift happens, when you sit and really realize like what Sonder is, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm trying to think of some of the vignettes I've made, like the asshole that cut you off in their car could just be a single parent who has a screaming kid in the back seat.
Tell it.
The person who's silent in an elevator is probably thinking about the last words they said to their father before they passed. Or
There you
the kid
go.
that you bullied probably thinks about you every time they go to give a presentation and they stutter. Like we're all connected in ways we can't possibly understand. People are more like wonderfully overwhelming and complex than we can ever imagine, but we have to try to imagine it, because right now we're assuming that we know, and we're, for lack of a better word, eating each other. And we have to do better. And I know that we can, because we all have that capacity. It's all this other stuff that's in the way of how we have to be and who we are. And not just, so who we are in terms of like the labels and the narratives and the roles and what right is, as opposed to figuring out what that is together.
Okay, what would you say, because strategically, real life, we're in 2025, living what we live in.
Mhm.
What would you say to the person who is feeling downtrodden, or they're feeling like this country's going to pot? I wish people would get it together. These are real feelings, and they don't feel good about the future. They don't have a positive perspective. What do you say? What's one step they can take to navigate things?
Ooh, I need to think about that for a second. Because
Yeah.
the first thing, and I don't know if it's a step, but it's something I feel compelled to say, is like, if that is you, you're not alone. So many people feel that way. I feel that way. And yet I'm believing and trying to put something out there that can change it. I think the other piece is to, instead of dwelling on how things aren't working, work to uncover the beliefs that allow them to persist.
Hmm.
So right now, I'm trying to think of like what is like the issue. I'll go with politics, because it's not politics anymore. It's just a divisive tool. I think that is really tough to deal with or face, because there's this belief, at least in many cases with people that I talk to and work with and deal with, like my family included, there's a
Yeah.
belief that like, oh, well, we're so different. They think this and we think that, so we have to be against each other. But if you shift that and go like, oh, well, if that's the belief I have, like, look, we're so different. They think this and there's no way we can agree. What if you change that? What would life be like? What would you experience if you realize that you're actually more similar than
Hmm.
different? How would that change? Like, what if, thinking back in 2016, like a majority of people that voted for Trump were also going to vote for Bernie Sanders? Like, how would that change for you? Like, and that starts to shift it from seeing like, oh, it's not a left right issue, it's an up down issue. Like
Hmm.
it's, and as soon as you see it as an up down in terms of like income and the distribution of wealth, then it's like, well, why do we have the systems that we have currently? Why do we exchange our time for money? Like, who decided that? Like, who? And if you keep doing this, why, literally, like this one is at 2.5 and it's exhausting, but keep asking why,
Why?
eventually you will hit a bedrock, like a foundation of, well, that's just the way that it's always been. You want to? Yeah. Come here. And if that, this is Shiloh, by the way.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Shiloh.
I heard, and I like your name. Guess what my name is?
Yeah.
It starts with an E. I'm going to let you guess.
I have a new shirt. Name is
So you just going to ignore my name and you going to talk about your new shirt.
We're 2.5. We're doing great over here.
Tell me about your new shirt.
What's on it?
Octopus.
Oh, an octopus, you mean that 8-legged creature that goes like this?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen one?
They're eating ice cream.
The octopus is eating ice cream?
Yeah.
What kind? Is it mint chocolate chip or vanilla,
Yellow
walnut?
and pink.
It's yellow and pink ice cream?
Yeah.
I've never seen that kind.
I ice cream with candy.
Oh, you want the ice cream with the candy. I sometimes eat that one too. I had the cotton candy.
Yeah.
Cotton candy.
But if you keep asking why, like he does,
Yeah.
eventually you'll get to a point of like, I don't know, it's just always been that way. And I think the thing that we can do is to find what those things are. It's like, oh, it's just always been this way. And then ask yourself, why can't it be different? And I think if enough of us start asking that question, we'll see that it can. And the more people that are pulled into that questioning and that like discovery, you can find that, oh, actually, if this person did their job a little differently, then it would let this person do it differently. And if that happened, then these people. So it's all of us unremembering the stuff that we've been told just is. And yeah, I think that's what we can do. It's the question.
Yeah,
the question
it sounds like a big task though.
Yeah.
But it really isn't, because what you said, Ian, is just start with the question.
Mhm.
Why? Like, why is it this way? Can I unravel that? Can I shift it? Can I do it differently? Why? And I can speak to that just from an entrepreneur perspective too. That's how I came to be right now, because I used to work a job at the DoubleTree Hotel, and I'm sitting there like 8 to 5. You mean I gotta get up? I can't relax and get up. I gotta go in at this time and leave at this time. All my daylight is spent inside at who made this up? Like, I started asking, why is this the way? And then eventually I went to massage school and I enrolled in massage school, did that for a year and a half, graduated, and decided I don't want to work for anybody else with the massage. I'm going to start my own business, because another question, who said I got to work for this spa?
That's a great one. Why?
Yeah, who said?
Yeah.
Why? Who said? So then it's like, who said I got to live here? So then I moved. So I'm like, who said I got to stay in Virginia my whole life? Let me go to Tennessee. And now I'm here in Georgia. It's those kinds of promptings and questions that is a good start. So I like that, because it allows us to use your phrase, to get curious.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know if it's too soon to throw this in here. It's only been
throw it in.
So much. So part of the work that I'm doing, part of curiosity architecture, deals with, there's been a lot of involvement with AI with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm writing a book on it, because I feel like that needs to be, like that needs to get out there. I think other people need to see what I've been able to see in this relationship that I had with ChatGPT. But in that work and in those discussions, free will has come up quite a few times, and I have countless slides and a whole curriculum on to make this make sense. But like free will, like, can I act authentically? Do I have, is my destiny made, or can I, move about? Becomes possible whenever we move from seeing free will as control. And so like a control, not possible, but creation, it is. And the metaphor that I've used is like, well, yeah, like if you're talking about like free will in terms of like control, that's like controlling a character in a video game. It's like, oh, I'm going to play, I'm going to be Link in Legend of Zelda, or Mario Brother. Like I'm going to jump here and move that. And like, that's what's so frustrating. And we might not have free will in that sense. But what does make sense is if you see yourself as so much bigger, if you remember so much, like remember the things that we've been told to forget and what everything around us tells us. Remember that we aren't just the player in a game, we are the person who is choosing the game. And so this free will doesn't come from controlling a character in a video game, but literally seeing yourself as someone who is playing the Nintendo 64 or the Switch or something and picking what game it is. And right now, everything around us, all of like our systems, our processes, our ways of thinking, our movies, our show, like all of that has convinced us that we have to choose to play Resident Evil. That everything is scary and things are scarce and there's a zombie on every corner and we need a chainsaw. I don't play video games. I don't know how you actually play this. Also, Resident Evil terrifies me. But
you like, I ain't even playing that game. No Mortal Kombat. No.
I watch it and I curl away. I'm not going to scare myself on purpose. But like so much of what we've been conditioned to believe is that like this life is scary and we have to act in that way. We have to hoard things from other people. We have to act in our own self-interest, when instead that free will could apply. Instead of creating a world that is full of zombies and fear and chainsaws, what if we believed this was Mario Party, where just participating is fun? What if like if nothing but mini games and celebration, and if you win, great. If you don't, that's also great, because just being there is a part of it. And so that shift has been something I'm trying to like understand. But it's like, yeah, I can do what I need to. I'm not going to control what happens today or whatever, but I believe this is all unfolding in a way that is the game that I want it to be, which is not a scary monster something game, but like, let's play Mario Party.
Yeah, because it can be fun. It can be delightful. Like you said, Mario Party. I can decide I don't want to play that game. Let's play a new game. Like, can it be Mario Party? It can even be a new game that is not on the market.
Exactly.
It doesn't even have to exist. I made it up. I can imagine it. It's like
exactly.
And to me, that's how I live my life. And just yesterday, I had an inkling after I met with my tutoring students. I was like, I got to get out of this house because I work from the house and it's like, I got to go. So what I did, and we just have one car, so I got a lift. I was like, I'm taking myself out, because when you have those feelings, you got to act on it. Yeah. So that's what I did. I got myself a lift, went to the coffee shop, had a nice donut. Then I went to the Mexican restaurant, stopped at the herb shop, just walked around and just was curious. And I had fantastic drivers. We had good conversation, like with my two drivers. But if you're stuck, I could have, because I've heard people say this to me too, like when I'm taking solo trips or whatever. Do you feel safe? Do you feel, because they're thinking it's Mortal Kombat. Like they think the world out there is like, you can't get in that car with that person you don't
fatality
know. Like they're thinking like the worst is gonna. I've never had any of that happen to me, and I've been to some sketchy places that people would determine to be sketchy places, but nothing bad has ever happened to me because I'm not playing that game.
Well, and I don't work too much with this, but like the law of attraction is a thing. If you go in somewhere like this and people are going to feel that and then respond in a similar way.
Yeah.
You show up, I think, circling back to how we kicked this off, like ready to play, ready to lean in and go like, what can we do? What can we make? What's possible? That's different. Like, yeah, make mud pies together, like play with sticks, dude. Like, but that's much more of an invitation as opposed to people like needing to be defensive.
What do you, because go ahead, Ian.
Just had to make sure I knew where my kid was.
Yeah, that's okay. What can we do? What can we do to open up more of those invitations in our everyday life?
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful questions, I think it starts with questioning in general.
Mm-hmm.
If you shift, I do it with him, and it's scary. It's scary, like the amount of development that he gets just from being questioned all the time, and not like interrogated. But I mean, earlier this morning, it was he's like, I want a treat. I'm like, well, is it, did you do something to get it? He's like, no. I'm like, well, do we get one? If like letting someone else fill in the blanks with the questions that you ask leads to something really cool. So questioning in general, awesome. A specific question that has changed a lot and like let me lean in and let other people lean in is, instead of asking like, how are you, or what should we do, or whatever, just asking, what's that like, to someone. What is this like? Has done wonders, because it opens the door that there's no specific way they have to ask. If you ask, how are you feeling? Happy, sad, glad, upset.
And
like,
ain't nobody telling you the truth anyway. Like, most of the time, I'm just being honest. When you ask that question in that way, yeah.
Good. Yeah. But if you go, what's that like? And you're like, oh, or something like that. Even if you're looking back on something, instead of saying like, oh, like, did you like whatever? It's like, well, that's a leading question. What I've done with him is, what do you remember? Because that will innately let someone share what they found to be important, because everyone's going to see something differently. That's the whole point, I think, of play, of curiosity, is that like we as individuals are defined by our perspective. We are defined by space and time. Where are we and when are we? Like me sitting here talking to you in this moment, no one else in the universe has this perspective at this time. So if you ask me what it's like to talk to you right now, only I can answer that. And that feels really special. And so the more that you do that, it builds the muscle of going, oh, yes, that is a 2.5-year-old boy, or a Black woman, or a biracial like man. But like, oh, there's so much more to them than I assumed. And that it builds a capacity. It gives a new lens to see things, and invites people in to share their perspective. And when you both meet in that like that undefined space, it lets possibilities emerge.
What's that like? I've never asked that question. I've asked stuff similar, which is like, what do you notice, or something like that.
That works too.
I'm always asking that one. What did you notice? Because it is because that's how I've discovered a lot of stuff, and I see it with other people when they ask questions. It leads you to this discovery. It just, to use that word, but you got to be willing to ask and to get the answer, because if you're just closed off, to use what you were saying, law of attraction, going into a space and you're closed off, I don't want to talk to nobody, I don't want to see nobody, you're not going to get any answers. But if you're open, what's that like? How is this? Why is this? What is this? When is this? All these questions they tell you to ask. Like, but you gotta be open enough to ask them.
Yeah. Oh, and I feel like that's what makes curiosity so powerful, because it's a bridge. I think it's really easy, even for me. Like, this is all I think about. And when I first hear curiosity, I'm like, oh yeah, it's questions. It's questions. But like, no, if you use questions intentionally, if you engineer a situation based on a question or leading to a question, something new comes up that hasn't existed before. And so curiosity is a bridge. It's a bridge to recognition. It's a bridge to appreciation. I don't like throwing this out there that much, but like, it's a bridge to love. Like, if you question someone enough and they keep sharing enough about them, you're going to learn something about them that no one else knows. And then you'll see how we're so similar, even with these perceived differences. And I feel that's what the definition of love is. It's seeing oneness in difference. It's seeing how we're all connected in a way that we can't fully comprehend. But if we forget all the stuff that we've been told and how small we're made to believe we are, then it's like, oh yeah, we're all part of the same thing. We're just seeing it from different angles and different perspectives. And like, what's yours like? oh, that's pretty cool.
Oneness in difference. That's what love is. I think sometimes that's why some people are afraid of love. Like, to be honest with you, I mean, because I hear it all the time, especially with what I do, helping people through breakup. I'm never going to do that again. Like, they're like, I've been through the one breakup, I've been through the one thing. I don't want to go back there because to me, love does challenge our differences. It does challenge that oneness. And it's not just romantic love, it's every love is just love. I mean, it just in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh no, but I think that's why curiosity is so powerful, because it lets us, without trying to, uncover that. And if you're curious to a cashier at the grocery store and ask, what's that like? Or, how are you? And you're real about it. You truly want to know. Hang on one second. And you're genuine in asking, then you'll get a response that might shock you. You'll get a sense of connection that lets you feel seen and them feel seen. And you get to leave the grocery store feeling odd, because it's like, why isn't everything like that? And then you can go back to questioning why. And because when I go, oh, how are you doing? It's like, well, good. No, what if we actually meant that when we asked it? What if we tried to understand how someone is, as opposed to just a greeting?
So not just giving a greet. Yeah, because it doesn't come across as genuine anyway. Like if I'm just saying, oh, how are you? Because if you watch people, and I've done it, I can attest to doing this too. Like I'll just be like, how you doing? I didn't even pause to take it in. I'm on about my merry way. I didn't even wait for you.
Well, and I think that's what's so, when I talk about forgetting, I mean the forgetting piece, to forget is logic and rationality and words, for lack of a better word. Because we can say the same words twice. If I go, hey, how are you? There's one. Or if I go how are you? Same words.
Yeah.
The second one had a little more. I'm trying to get you to lean in a little more. I was trying to be authentic. It was tough. Kid. We're talking.
Yeah.
But there's a difference. There's a pause. There's a stillness. It's creating space for someone else to come in a little bit more versus how are you doing? And if we can pause a little more, if we can be less afraid of stillness and silence and not knowing what the next moment will be, something really cool can emerge. We just have to give it the space, the time, and the attention for it to show itself.
And it will. Totally will. Give it space, give it time. How can people find you, Ian? Because I know you're doing this work with Sonder Architects and developing everything in the background, the book, this. All of this.
Yeah, it's so my website is currently under revision because I'm pivoting from DEI to all of this. You can email me at any time. My email is Ian, IAN, at whatifblueprint.com. So WHATIFBLUEPRINT.com. Or actually, we can start with that. My website for Sonder Curiosity Architects is whatifblueprint.com. You'll get a big under construction thing currently because I'm trying to build that out as much as possible. Also LinkedIn, just Ian Gibbs-Hall. I'm the only one on the planet with this name. So if you search Ian Gibbs-Hall,
you're going to find you.
I will come up. So I try to have my record be as clean as possible because I can't hide. I'm not John Smith or.
You're one of a kind. You are one of a kind, but that's good. Going back to what we were stating earlier. And so everybody, this is Ian Gibbs-Hall again. You can find him, Ian, at whatifblueprint.com. blueprint.com. This has been another edition of Heart to Heart. I know you will have some great takeaways. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.